The moment I saw the guest freeze at my sister's wedding, I knew something was about to explode. He was holding a champagne glass halfway to his lips. Then my mother whispered something to him. And suddenly, his hand started shaking. The glass didn't fall. But his face went pale like he'd just seen a ghost. And I had no idea that in the next 10 minutes, my entire family's carefully built image would collapse in front of everyone. My name is Ryan Keller. I'm 34 years old, and I learned something about my family the hard way. They don't just lie. They perform lies like theater. My younger sister, Melissa, was always the golden girl. Pretty, soft-spoken, emotional in a way people found charming. And my parents treated her like a trophy they had polished since childhood. Everything about her wedding was perfection on display. 5-star resort venue. Imported flowers. Live orchestra. And a guest list filled with people my parents desperately wanted to impress. Old business partners. Wealthy in-laws. People they called important connections. I, on the other hand, was just the older brother who worked in logistics. Reliable. Invisible. Useful only when something needed fixing. But there was one person at that wedding who mattered to me more than anyone else. Her name was Elena. She wasn't rich. She wasn't loud. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. Elena had been working with me for years in a small community housing project. She helped families rebuild after disasters. She stayed out of attention, always focused on helping others. And for reasons I still can't fully explain, I fell in love with her quiet strength. We came to the wedding together. Not as a statement. Just as life. That was my mistake. Because my parents saw her immediately. And they didn't like what they saw. Before we even reached our table, I heard my mother whisper to my aunt. She just cleans houses, right? I stopped walking. My chest tightened instantly. My aunt hesitated. I think she does some kind of cleaning work. My mother gave a small smile. Oh. That explains it. Explains what? I looked at Elena beside me. She heard everything. But she didn't react. She just kept walking calmly, like nothing had touched her. That hurt more than anything. Because I knew she heard it. And she chose dignity over anger. At the table, my father leaned toward me. Ryan, he said quietly, you could have chosen someone more suitable for today. Suitable. That word again. Like people were products. I didn't answer him. I just held Elena's hand under the table tighter. But I should have known it wouldn't end there. Because my parents never stop at a single insult. They build narratives. And then they spread them. During the cocktail hour, I noticed guests whispering. Glances toward Elena. Subtle laughter. Judgment disguised as curiosity. Then I saw my mother in her element. Moving from group to group. Smiling. Talking. Performing. And every few minutes, her eyes would flick toward Elena. Like she was introducing a character in a story. Not a person. I finally caught up to her near the dessert table. Stop it, I said quietly. She blinked innocently. Stop what, Ryan? You know exactly what. She smiled softly. Oh honey. I'm just making conversation. Then she leaned in slightly. She seemed sweet. Just, very simple. Simple. Another polished insult. Before I could respond, the MC announced speeches. And that's when everything started collapsing. My uncle gave a toast. Then Melissa's new in-laws spoke. Then my father. All perfectly scripted. All about success, family unity, and blessing the next generation. And then my mother took the microphone. She smiled at the crowd like she was about to say something heartwarming. I just want to say how proud we are of Melissa, she began. Applause. And how grateful we are to have such wonderful guests here today. More applause. Then her eyes shifted. Directly to Elena. The smile didn't change. But the tone did. We believe everyone has their place in society, she said lightly. And it's beautiful when people are honest about who they are. A few guests chuckled politely. I felt my stomach drop. And sometimes, she continued, we are lucky enough to meet people who help us stay grounded. Like those who do household work, cleaning, supporting others in simple but important ways. The word cleaning hung in the air. Heavy. Intentional. I felt Elena's hand go still in mine. The room shifted. People started glancing at her openly now. Judging. Assuming. And then twist number one happened. A man at the far table suddenly stopped smiling. He slowly put down his glass. His face turned pale. Not confusion. Recognition. Like something had just connected in his mind. He whispered something to the woman beside him. She looked at Elena. Then at him. And both of them froze. I didn't understand it yet. But I would. My mother, satisfied, handed the microphone back and returned to her seat like she'd just delivered a harmless speech. But the atmosphere had changed. Something had cracked. Elena leaned toward me quietly. I need some air, she whispered. I nodded, angry but helpless. I followed her outside. And that's when twist number two hit. The man who froze followed us. He approached slowly. Carefully. Like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to speak. Excuse me, he said to Elena. She turned. Yes? He stared at her for a long moment. Then said. You don't remember me, do you? Silence. Elena shook her head gently. I'm sorry, I don't. He nodded slowly. Then his voice cracked slightly. My daughter survived the Riverside building collapse, because of you. I froze. Elena blinked. What? He stepped closer. You carried her out. You stayed with her until rescue teams arrived. You gave her your oxygen mask. The words hit like a physical. People nearby started listening. More guests began coming outside. He continued. She told me you never left her side, even when the structure was still unstable. Elena looked confused. That wasn't. I was just. He shook his head firmly. You saved her life. Then came the twist that shattered everything. Another guest stepped forward. Then another. And another. People from different tables. Different backgrounds. All recognizing her. A nurse. A firefighter. A city official. And every single one said the same thing. You saved someone I know. My mother appeared behind us. She looked irritated. What is going on here? Then one of the guests turned slowly toward her. You didn't know who she was? My mother forced a laugh. She said she does cleaning work. The man stared at her. Then said quietly. She runs the Volunteer Emergency Response Unit for the city's disaster relief program. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. My mother blinked. That can't be right. But it was already too late. Because another guest stepped forward holding his phone. I just found her interview online. He turned the screen. And there it was. Elena speaking at a National Humanitarian Awards ceremony. Recognized. Honored. Respected. Not as someone who cleans houses. But as someone who coordinated rescue operations across multiple disaster zones. The kind of work that saves lives. My mother's face went pale instantly. My father stepped forward angrily. This is ridiculous, she never said. Elena finally spoke. Calm. Controlled. I don't talk about my work much. Then she looked directly at my parents. Because people usually decide who I am before I open my mouth. That sentence landed harder than anything else that night. No anger. Just truth. Then came the climax. The same guest who first recognized her stepped forward again. "I was invited here as part of the city's emergency council," he said. "And I was actually told to meet you, Ms. Elena." He paused. Then added, "We've been looking for someone to lead the new National Disaster Coordination Program." Gasps spread through the crowd. He smiled slightly. "And your name was at the top of the list." My mother stumbled backward slightly. Because suddenly her entire narrative collapsed. The cleaning lady, she mocked, was someone governments actively recruited. Someone respected at levels she couldn't even imagine. And I saw it then. The shift. Guests weren't looking at Elena with pity anymore. They were looking at my parents. Silently. Judging them. For the first time that night. My father tried to recover. We didn't mean anything by it. But no one was listening anymore. Because respect doesn't come back once it's lost publicly. Elena turned to me softly. "I think we should leave." I nodded immediately. But before we walked away, I looked at my parents one last time. My mother couldn't meet my eyes. My father looked furious. But underneath that fury was something worse. Embarrassment. Exposure. Karma doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives as silence in a room where people finally see you clearly. We left the wedding without another word. No drama. No shouting. Just distance. Outside, Elena finally exhaled. "You didn't tell me any of this was going to happen," I said. She gave a small tired smile. "I didn't know it would happen either." I looked at her. "You saved lives." She shrugged slightly. "I just showed up when people needed help." That simplicity humbled me more than anything else. Because my parents had spent the entire night trying to define her as less. And reality did the opposite. Months later, I learned the wedding reception never fully recovered that night. The mood stayed broken. Guests left early. Whispers spread faster than speeches. And my parents? They stopped using Elena's name in conversation entirely. Because some truths are too loud to rewrite. As for me, I realized something I should have understood earlier. The way someone treats people they think are below them always reveals how small they actually are.